So if I can use ChatGPT or other AI tools to help me get to the same place without me having had to do it, I think that's fantastic.
Welcome to the Evolvepreneur AI Advantage Show, and I'm your host, Richard Wray. My mission is to help entrepreneurs understand AI and use it to their advantage. Join me today where we dig deep with our guests and get you the best concepts and strategies. Today's special guest is Alexis Haselberger. Alexis is a time management and productivity coach who helps people do more and stress less through coaching workshops and online courses. She has taught thousands of individuals to take control of their time, and clients include Google, Capital One, and Upwork. Today we're talking about using AI to do more and stress less. Alexis, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Alexis, really great to have you here. And as I ask all my guests, Alexis, where in the world are you?
I am in San Francisco.
Now that is a place I do know well. Been there many, many times. Fantastic city. Absolutely. But let's get into this then, Alexis. So let's talk about you for a second. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into the style of work that you're doing today.
Yeah, so I spent the first 15 years or so of my career working in early stage startups here in the Bay Area and some, not so early stage companies. But
the right part of the world for sure.
Exactly, the right part of the world for that, or maybe that's how I got into it, right? And there's a lot of burnout. People working really hard, people working well into the night, people working on weekends. And it was always really important for me to do an excellent job at whatever I was doing. But I was definitely not willing to work those kind of hours. And so I started kind of developing systems for myself to be able to do great work and do it in under 40 hours a week.
So this was before you got into coaching. What style of work were you doing then?
So my roles were things like director of operations and HR. I like to say it's everything except for sales and engineering, right? So it's like legal, finance, facilities, like all of the things, all of the little catch-all things that have to happen to make a company run. I was doing those types of things. And so eventually people started coming to me and saying like, well, how are you doing this? Like, I see that you're not so stressed. I see that you're, producing a lot of work. I see that, what's going on here. And so eventually the last startup that I worked for, the CEO came to me one day and was like, do you think that you could put together a workshop for our company about time management? Just tell them the things you already do. Like, don't think too much about it. And I thought, oh, that sounds super fun. And I think it just sparked something in me where I was like, oh, this is a skill set that didn't necessarily come easily to me, but that I have developed over time. And it's not something that is taught in college. It's not taught in high school. It's something that people either learn on the job or don't. And I thought that there was a real gap in the market there for me to be able to teach other people how to, be successful at work and also have fulfilling lives outside of work.
You mentioned something before we get into the AI side of this. You've mentioned something that I think is very interesting there. These are not skills that are taught before you get to work or even when you get to work. So do you think it'd be beneficial that at high school or college, people were maybe taught time management skills? Because if you jump into the workplace and you don't have this, you could be in for a heck of a shock.
Yeah, I mean, I think this and financial literacy are two things that just are not taught when we are in, any kind of formal education. And there are two things that are absolutely essential to being a successful adult.
Yeah, absolutely. And but those algebra equations that we all get taught, that we're told we'll need one day, they're really important still.
Right, definitely. I know we're all doing calculus these days, right?
every day of our lives. Okay, well, let's get to the AI side of things. You use AI to help people do more and stress less. So what are you doing? Tell me more.
Yeah. So, I use AI every single day, pretty much in my world. And I think that I think about AI actually differently than maybe a lot of people think about it when they think about productivity. I think that, I don't know about you, but I hear and I read so much about how, we're just going to be able to get so much more done because we're using AI and we're going to be able to produce so much more and, et cetera. And that's great. But my goal is actually to use AI to work less, to get as much done, but have more time for me. And so, and my family, et cetera. And that's my goal for other people too is to help them to get what they need to get done and do it more efficiently, but also not just fill up that time with more work, right? Actually use that time for things that are helpful. So in terms of how I use AI, I don't use it for writing very much. I know a lot of people use it as like a writing
That seems to be one of the main uses. Yeah.
I actually really enjoy writing. So I write a weekly blog post and I don't use it for that purpose. But what I do use it for is I will pump my blog post into ChatGPT and I will say, okay, based on this blog post, can you give me 25 click-worthy titles? Can you give me a YouTube description for the video that I'm going to create on this topic? Can you give me
suddenly have got a whole bunch of fireworks behind you. If anybody's not watching the video, this has been quite fun already. We have fireworks behind Alexis today.
Sometimes I use my hands to talk, and it seems that Zoom has added its own AI features, or all of these things have added their own AI features now, and that has happened to me a couple of times, and I don't know how to turn it off.
At least you're not a cat, and at least you're not that poor lawyer. No. You've seen that video, no doubt.
Yes, I'm not a cat, I'm not a potato, but I do have, artificial fireworks behind my head. So,
that stopped your train of thought. I'm very sorry.
That's okay. I know. I was like, is this going to stop or should we talk about it? But so I'll use it to do all those things and also like write an SEO description of this that I can put, in the back end of the blog and write, all those little things that I don't find super helpful or I don't find super, I don't like doing them. Right. I haven't do the things I don't like doing. And of course, I don't just take those titles and say, oh, this is what I'm going to use. I take them, I riff on them. I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. I might say it this way. And so I use it as kind of a thought partner in those ways. I could just keep going. So just interject if you would like.
Yeah, no. This is good. I mean, the question I was going to ask you, though, is you are, in my opinion, using AI in a very healthy way for very healthy reasons. From what you stated before is it's a way of getting your work done so you've got more time to spend with friends, family, and do things for yourself.
Yeah.
Which is wonderful. But so many people, they just see, hey, I can do more now. And they will fill whatever that time is. It's a very challenging thing in a competitive environment, especially in the part of the world that you're in. I've been in and around Silicon Valley a lot of my life. And, it's just super competitive. And there's always somebody who will work those extra hours. How do you help instill the discipline and the confidence in people to not use that extra time for more work and to actually use it to make themselves healthier and better?
So I'll say this from two perspectives. One, I'm not here to judge how anybody else wants to use their time. What I'm here to do is to help people to use their time in alignment with their goals and their values. So if somebody came to me and they said, you know what, my goal is to work as much as I possibly can and get as much done in that time as possible, I'll say, great, happy to help you with that goal. We're going to use, AI, we're going to use all sorts of other techniques, and we will help you to get as much work done as is humanly possible. That is not what usually people are coming to me for. Usually people are coming to me because they have read all the books. Like they've read Getting Things Done. They've read Deep Work. They've, taken some Franklin Covey class over there and none of it worked for them. And they're stressed out. They have been, maybe they're 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years into their career and they have achieved some level of success, but they have done it by brute force.
Yes.
And they are now looking to be able to still maintain that success, even grow at work, while also taking back time for themselves so that they are able to have both, right? To be able to have success at work while also maintaining a life outside of that. And so I actually don't think it's not that hard for me to sell people on this because they're already sold on, like they're coming to me because they have been working until midnight for the last 10 years. They're coming to me because they've gone that route and they don't like it. And they're trying to figure out something else, right? So I'll use AI to help them in different ways to be like, oh, you have to research. I mean, I'll give an example from my life recently. I love using AI to give me a table back of research. So one of my kids is about to start driving and has to learn how, driver's ed and all that stuff. And so I said, ChatGPT, please give me a table of all of the driver's ed options in San Francisco. Please give me the column headings of the name of the place, the URL, their opening hours, their phone number, the cost, and, the distance from my house or whatever it is. And that I could do that by like doing my own Googling and creating that. But if I ask ChatGPT to do that, I can do that in 30 seconds.
So you really are taking big chunks of time out of things that, yes, you could do, but as you mentioned earlier on, you're getting it to do the things that are basically just dull and boring.
Yes, the boring stuff. Like I want to focus my brain power on the interesting stuff, the creative stuff. So if I can use ChatGPT or other AI tools to help me get to the same place without me having had to do it, I think that's fantastic. I have a friend that told me he didn't want to categorize his expenses for taxes, so he pumped the CSV into ChatGPT and said, "Please categorize these," and then he sent it to his accountant. Right? I mean, nobody wants to do that job.
Definitely not.
Nobody. And so if I can have AI do it, we're all better for it.
That's a really smart set of uses. So walk me through this. A client comes along to you and they've got a set of goals. What are the sort of steps you take them through, and what are the new parts? I mean, you've mentioned ChatGPT, and I think a lot of people who listen to this are aware of ChatGPT. But what are the steps and what are the tools that you use with people to take them beyond what you might have done, say, 5 years ago?
Yeah. So I'll answer this kind of in two parts. So
Please.
First, the steps I take people through, those really haven't changed, but the tools that we use may have changed. And so at a very high level, I walk people through an arc that helps them to kind of take control of their time. And these things are, first, we take a stock of our current situation, right? What are our traits, our tendencies? How are we using our time right now so that we have a starting place to move on from, so that we are building strategies for who they actually are already instead of trying to go fit someone in a box over here. Then we tackle task management. So all those things in your head and in your computer and, on a piece of paper and your email inbox, like we are going to build a single trusted system so that we can both know what we need to get done, prioritize it appropriately, and also decide what we're not going to do or what we're going to outsource or delegate or maybe give to ChatGPT. Then we do planning. So how do we actually mentally disconnect from work by using effective planning processes so that we can enjoy our weekends and our evenings? We move into our communication tools. So there's steps at every way, like with our emails, right? Some people, they really have trouble writing emails because they want the perfect language, right? This is a place where AI tools are really helpful, right? You can say, hey, here's what I want to say. Can you make it like more formal? Could you make it nicer, right? It helps people to jump that hoop essentially. But we work on, our communication tools, make sure we're not drinking from a fire hose of communication. We have a method to get to inbox zero and stay there without spending all our time in email. We move on to our calendar. Most people have way too many meetings on their calendar, and those meetings are also not usually a very good use of time. So we really make sure that the time we're spending in meetings is the right time and valuable. We move into, I'm almost done, I promise. We move into habits.
Please, this is great.
We move into habits and habit building because a lot of the things that we're doing are around habit change. And in my experience, I don't know, I'd be curious to know what you think, but I do not think that willpower and motivation a habit make. These are things that can be useful, but they are not resources that we always have access to. And so I teach science-based techniques for habit building and habit breaking. We move into efficiency. There's a lot of efficiency to begin with AI, but we're thinking about outsourcing, delegation, batch processing, all of that kind of stuff. And then we move into focus. So focus is equal parts continuing to remove some distractions. Studies show that on average, it takes us about 23 minutes to recover from any distraction, to kind of refocus. So people are losing about a third of their workday just to distractions.
So somebody asks you where the coffee machine is and you've been working really hard and that's 20 minutes of your day gone. Or
any ping that you get, any email notification, any Slack
literally anything. It could be just literally that ping to say, hey, you have a new email, and that's 20 minutes of your day gone.
Yeah. And it's not because you might be thinking, well, no, I just get back to what I'm doing. But what often happens is that, okay, we get that ping, we get momentarily distracted from the thing. And then we're like, oh, I have to do this other thing over here. So we start doing that thing. And then we're like, oh, I have to do this other thing over here. And then it takes a while to get back to the original thing. Right. So it's removing distractions and then also increasing focus even in the absence of distractions, because I think we've probably all had the experience of being alone in a room, our phone's in the other room, nobody's around us, and you still can't make yourself focus on the thing you're trying to do, right? Absolutely. So that's kind of the arc that I take people through. But as you can see, there's a lot of opportunities to use different tools. So to give you an example, there's an AI suite of tools I really love that's free. It's called Goblin Tools. I don't know if you're familiar with this one.
Not that
and
one.
Yeah, so if you search like Goblin Tools, I think it's tools.goblin. I can't remember exactly, but search Goblin Tools and you'll find it. And they have a great tool that helps you. There are two tools that are really interesting. One of them helps you to break down a big task into smaller pieces so that people can actually figure out what to do next, right? And maybe it's not perfect, but it helps you get over that hump of like big amorphous thing to steps I need to take to move it forward. It also has a time estimator. So you can put a task in there and you can say, how long do you think this is going to take me?
Because nobody estimates that correctly, do they, normally? It'll take me half an hour, but then you're there all day.
We're terrible, right? And again, like, it's not like the tool is going to be perfect. It doesn't have all the information, but it actually will show you the calculations that it's trying to use. So it'll be like, okay, based on what you said, I don't know, I think I gave it one as an example that was like, my next online course, tell me how long this is going to take. And it really broke it down and was like, okay, this is how much time you're probably going to need to film each thing. So, if you have, 50 lessons, then you got to time this by that. And it really helps you to processize that type of thinking, right? Lots of AI uses and communication tools. So I think that's how I use it now, is like, I'm like, where are we in this process? And what additional tools do we now have access to that we can use in support of the original goal?
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, as somebody who does have ADHD, a focus and attention, we know the challenge. Yeah. So being neurodivergent like that is a...
Yeah. And I was diagnosed with ADHD several years after I started this business and in my 40s, right? And
it's same here. I was in my 40s when I was diagnosed as well.
Yeah. So. And it's like, everything makes sense in retrospect, right?
Absolutely.
But I also think, that's, in some ways, it's like we do the work we need, right? So you think, how is a person with ADHD a time management person? And it's because I have a lifetime of coping mechanisms to draw from.
Oh, look, if there's somebody that's going to know how to deal with this, then it's got to be somebody that's had to deal with this.
Right.
Absolutely. That's very interesting. There's one area that I'm particularly interested in that you mentioned right up at the beginning of what you were just saying. Okay. And it's that focus, and there's a certain amount of time management from the days of COVID when so many people were working from home and people started to work at home, to the point where you see so many people that might be sat on the couch in the evening watching TV, but they've still got their phone in their hand. They're still scrolling while they're supposed to be watching a TV show and relaxing with the family. Are there any techniques or tools even that you can recommend to try and break that particular cycle?
Yes. So I think kind of unintentional scrolling is one of the biggest plagues that we have, right? And I think that if you ask people, they'll say like, no, I didn't, that wasn't my goal. My goal wasn't to sit there and scroll and not pay attention, right?
But you did anyway.
You did it anyways, right? I think we've all had that experience of picking up our phone to do something very specific, like check your bank balance. And then 45 minutes later, you put down your phone. You haven't checked your bank balance, but you're completely up to speed on Instagram or Twitter or whatever, right? So I think there are a couple of things that we can do. One of them requires no additional tools at all. And this is just to take all of those apps that are your Achilles heel. We all know what those are. For me, it's TikTok. For other people, it might be other things, right? And just put them 5 swipes back in your phone in a folder that you label time sucks or think twice or something. All this, that you can still access them. I'm not here to tell you go delete that stuff from your phone, because I know what you're going to do, and you're going to just, delete it for a couple of days and then you're going to put it back on, right? That's fine. But what we want to do is just give ourselves a little bit of friction, because humans are creatures of convenience. And when we have just a little bit of friction, like if your thumb can't just get there automatically, if you have to actually like search or swipe, it gives your brain just a second to be like, is this what I want to be doing? Is this my goal? Right? So that's one thing you can do. You don't need anything else. You just create a folder on your phone. Another thing that you can do also that requires no other tools is to grayscale your phone. So grayscaling your phone is just making it black and white instead of color. Every phone, Android and iPhone, has this capability. And what studies show is that we use our phone about 20% less when it's grayscaled because it's less interesting. It's harder to play time-wasting games because they rely often on color. Instagram, much less interesting when it's all in black and white, right? So that's another way. And, for me, I don't do this 100% of the time, but I have grayscale set up on a schedule on my phone. So at 11 p.m., my phone goes black and white. And if I am scrolling at that time, it's just a signal to me of like, oh, you didn't want to do this, right? And you're trying to make it harder for yourself. So choose what you want to do here. There are other apps that people can use. There's an app called OneSec, like ONESEC. And the goal of this is really just the same thing as what I talked about with putting it in a TimeSuck folder. It's just anytime you're going towards one of those apps, it just opens up and it's like, just give yourself 1 second, take a deep breath. And then if you want to go access that thing, you can. And if you don't, make a different decision.
It's like a little Jiminy Cricket going, are you sure?
Right, exactly. And the interesting thing is that sometimes, I don't know about you, but I don't know did you watch that movie, The Social Dilemma?
I did, yes.
Okay. So, and there's that whole thing about people putting their phones into this like locked box and all of that. For me, I think that's a little extreme. Like we don't actually need that to get the benefits that we want. We can do some of these minor things, or even using screen time limits on your phone and things like this. It's not that we are these creatures that just can't stop ourselves. It's that we just need to build in a little bit of friction.
The classic physician heal thyself there. I see parents putting these sorts of limitations on their kids, but never putting them on themselves.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And then how does that teach self-regulation?
Well, there you go. Absolutely. And then the kids will fight against it. And especially if they don't see their parents doing the same sort of things, they go, well, why can't I do that? It's like, the kids wanting to drink and smoke because they see their parents drinking and smoking.
Right. Or they go to college and they have, they've been locked down their whole life from an internet perspective. And then now they're just free reign and it's, they're spending all their time doing things like that. And so I think technology is like, it's not inherently bad or good. It just is. And we have to figure out how we want to use that.
But there is also the dopamine effects that a lot of these apps are designed to have. And, us both having ADHD, we're probably deeply aware of how that particular mechanism works. And certainly how the apps are designed to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
That is quite challenging, no doubt. Interesting.
Yeah.
So taking a step back from all that then, can you give me an example, say, of a client that you've worked with? Obviously, you don't need to name names, where it has really changed things for them. It's, it's made such a big difference in their life, kind of your golden client.
In terms of AI or in terms of just...
Yeah, well, let's say with AI on this example, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think that for clients of mine who have ADHD, these using even ChatGPT or using this Goblin tools that I talked about, to be able to break something down into a small enough piece that there's not so much of a barrier to getting started. I think that's been actually incredibly helpful for a lot of these clients, because instead of what might have happened before, where it takes a lot of mental energy to figure out, okay, I have to do this thing. I don't want to do this thing. I have to do this thing. Ugh, I got to figure out what to do next, etc. If you can instead bypass all of that and say, okay, here's this thing, give me the next steps to do it, that removes that motivational barrier there. And so I found that for clients that have ADHD, like myself, that has been a real game changer in that they have a lot less resistance to doing the boring and hard things because someone else can do the boring and hard things for us.
And then do you find that neurotypical people, people who would like to refer to themselves as normal in this respect, which is always a term I love, do the same techniques work with them, or do you have to change them slightly?
No, so I think this is my supposition. So again, I did not know I had ADHD until I had been doing this for a long time. And what I strongly believe is that all of these techniques are useful to everyone and they're essential to people with ADHD.
I'm not going to argue there.
Right? It's just kind of like, in some ways, it's like, managing people while hybrid and remote. It's actually all the same skills. Being a good manager as a remote and hybrid manager is all the same skills as it is when you're in office. It's just that it's absolutely essential to be intentional about that stuff when you're remote and hybrid, whereas you can kind of get by with osmosis and some other things. And it's a little like training wheels situation when we're in the office, right? It's like same skills. It's just really essential for one group.
That makes complete sense. So Alexis, tell me, if there was one piece of advice that people should take away from our conversation today, what would it be?
So I think especially around the AI side of things, I think it's just not to limit your usage or thinking about AI to just being a writing partner. Because that's what I hear all the time. People are like, I don't use AI because it doesn't write as well as I can. And I just sit there and I think, yeah, great. And also there are 50 million other ways you could be using it to do things that it does better than you.
Absolutely. Alexis, that's been really interesting. Went in a few directions that I wasn't expecting today, which makes for a great interview. So thank you for that. Where can people find you, and what exciting projects do you have that they should know about?
Yes, thank you. So best place to find out about me and all the things that I'm doing is my website, alexishaselberger.com, which I hope you'll put in the show notes because no one will be able to spell it. I am also on most of the socials at Do More Stress Less. And in terms of exciting projects, I just launched my own podcast. So I am just a few episodes in, and I have a group coaching program that I run a couple of times a year that tends to have people from all over the world, not just the US, supporting each other to learn that set of skills that we talked about earlier. And so that's always a great place for folks who want to learn more.
And what's your podcast called?
It's called Do More Stress Less.
Fantastic. Well, look, if you ever want a guest, let me know.
All right.
Alexis, thank you for your time today. As I say, a fantastic interview and very, very enjoyable.
Thank you so much.
Well, that's a wrap on another awesome guest episode for the Evolvepreneur AI Advantage Show. Just before you go, if you like this episode, we would be very grateful for a 5-star review. Please also consider recommending the show to a friend or two. Make sure you subscribe for future episodes at aiadvantage.show right now. Until next time, I'm Richard Wray, and if you're an entrepreneur, get the AI advantage today.